All right, so in this video, I'm going to walk you guys through one more example about how to take data from a frequency table and move it into a histogram. All right. So what we're looking at here for this next example is a sporting goods store. And all they did was they recorded the number of tents that were sold each week during February and then organized that data into a frequency table. So we can see here that like the first week is just days 1 through 7. Y'all know there's 7 days in a week. Then the next 7 days was week 2. The next 7 days was week 3. And the last week in February here is the 22nd through the 28th. Now it looks like in that first week of February, there were 5 tents that were sold. So far in the data, we'd have 5 tents that were sold. Now in the next category, or in the next week, there were 7 more tents that were sold. So 5 plus 7 is going to be 12 tents sold so far. The third week, there were 10 more sold. So that's 22 total so far. And in the last week, there were 12 more sold. So we have 34 tents sold in the month of February. Okay, so that's again what the cumulative frequency does, and it allows you to see the total right there. So there would be 34 tenths total. Now, when I look at this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 categories, and when I move across here, I think there's 12 sections. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then there's the last one. And let's go ahead and start to write in. We've got days 1 through 7, which is the first week. Then we have days 8 through 14, which is week 2. Week 3 is day 15 through 21. And then the last week would be 22 through the 28th. So we got a label down here. This is just going to be the days in February. You can just put days in Feb. Okay. And then we know that over here, this is frequency. And I'm just going to type that because I can't turn my paper sideways. So frequency, but then I can turn that sideways. All right, and the only thing we need to do is give this thing a title still. So what we're putting here is the number of tents sold. Okay, number of tents that got sold. Now the histogram, like I said, if you want to jot these 3 things down, it must have a title, like we just put in there. We labeled the axis, the X and the Y axis, with the scale, and we put in here what it is, days in February and frequency are 2 factors. And then they're consistent intervals, meaning it's 1 through 7, and then another 7 here, and another 7 here, and another here. Okay? All right, cool. Now, if we make the histogram, the first one, this is just going to go up by ones. So we're going up to a height of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, the next one is a height of 7. So we want just 2 more from there. All right, then 10. So 7, 8, 9, 10 would be up here. And then 12. So 10, 11, 12. So 12 is all the way up here. Okay. So again, there's no spaces in between our bars. We have these nice intervals. Each bar shows height, and we have the tent sold in February. Now, if we start to try to analyze this thing, we can see that the bar with the tallest height is clearly this one. It's the 22 to 28 interval. Whoops. And what this is called, y'all, this is called the mode. Okay, this is the mode, M-O-D-E. And what that is the mode is the most frequent. So it looks like here, the last week in February is when the most of our tents were sold. And I want you guys to kind of think about why that might make sense. We're going to kind of analyze it a little bit down here. So can we, we'll come back to this question in a second. We'll come back to that in a second, sorry. How many total tents were sold? We already got this one here. That's 34 total tents. Now, which interval had the least frequency? That's going to be the 1 to 7 interval. That's that first week. And which interval had the highest frequency? The last week. And again, if we look at the number that were sold in this last week, it's 12 versus the number that were sold in the first week. And why do y'all think that is? Well, maybe because as we're getting later in February, people are starting to think a little bit about spring weather and summer weather, and people are starting to think about the fact that they might want to go camping. So as they're planning ahead and thinking about that, then they might be preparing. So early on in February, when it's still like snowing out, people might not really be thinking about it. But as the weeks go on, you can kind of see the trend that more and more people are thinking ahead to going camping. All right. Now, what percent of all of the tents sold in February sold in that last week? And that's going to be this last week right here. And it's 12 out of the 34. So we can just simply find out what percent that is by doing 12 divided by 34. And that's going to be about 35%. That's about 35%. So 35% of the tents were sold in the last week of February. And again, that probably has to do, like, what can we infer about that? It probably has to do with the fact that it's later in February. People are starting to think about the upcoming spring and summer and starting to think about going camping. So they're just preparing for that stuff. All right, so that was just another quick video on another quick example of how to take the data from a frequency table and put it into a histogram. There's going to be some practice in your packet that you guys have next after this. Thank you for watching.